Today on Coding 101, we're talking if-else, functions, and some really cool examples from you.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Coding 101 is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
Coding 101 is brought to you by Lynda.com. Learn what you want when you want with access to over 2,000 high-quality online courses and training videos, all for one low monthly price. To try it free for 7 days, visit lynda.com/C101. That's LYNDA.com/C101. And by Jira, an Atlassian product. Jira is the project management solution for teams planning, building, and launching great products. To learn more about Jira and try it free for 30 days, visit Atlassian.com/C101. Welcome to Coding 101. It's the Twitch show that gives you the knowledge to live in the wonderful world of the programmer. I'm Father Robert Ballecer.
And I'm Shannon Morse, and today we are going to get you learned up on everything so you can be a code monkey.
That's right. We love code monkeys, but of course we know that the key to being a code monkey, Shannon, is repetition, right?
That's right, it is.
And what did we talk about last week?
I don't remember. What did we talk about? No, I'm just kidding.
It's all a blur. It's all a blur.
So last week we talked a little bit about if-else statements, or functions, and then we also talked a little bit about relational operators, I believe it was called.
Yeah, that's right, because we needed to figure out a way to have certain code execute and other code not.
Yes, exactly. So the first thing I wanted to show you guys was Lou's example, and then I wanted to show you my example for if-else. Yay, fun times! So let's take a look at my computer, and I'm going to open up Visual Studio. So I'll go to my Start menu, click on Visual Studio, bam, bam, bam. So I found out something interesting. If you just try to open a file, no project is going to be tied to that file.
Yeah, you really do need to open up a project, because
you have to open up a project.
One of the things that we haven't talked about, and it's actually kind of important, but you know, we were just hoping people would figure it out, is anytime you're doing one of these projects, one of these files, there's actually a bunch of files that are attached to it.
Yes.
You just don't see them.
Yes, exactly. And basically what the project is going to do is it's going to look at all those different files and it's going to try to combine them and build them all at the same time and then run them all. So if you have two files in the same one and you're trying to compile both of them separately, not going to work out so well. So I built two different projects for mine. So I'm going to go to Open Project, and I'm going to open up Lou's example over here. Episode 5, Lou's example, and what we're going to see is exactly what he showed us last week. So I didn't change anything, and I click Start, and it's going to ask me, what would you like to write? So I want to write howdy. How many times? I'm going to say 7. Do you want to print it on different lines? Yes, I do. So then it
does it. Yeah.
Print on separate lines. Yes. Oops. It didn't.
Okay. Well. Okay. We'll troubleshoot that. But essentially, what the code did was it used a series of if-else statements and some loops in order to take an input from the user, and then decide what the user actually wanted to do.
Yes. Exactly. So then I did my own. So I go over to Open Project. This is Snub's example. Click there. Okay, so this is my example. So I basically took the same thing that Lou showed us, and then I changed just a few things. So I played with colors this time, because I haven't played with that yet. So I put in some different colors: foreground color, console color, dot red.
Snubs is getting crazy.
Yeah, so I was just messing around with a couple of different things. I was trying to break them. And then I actually did break it a few times. It was a little frustrating, but I figured it out. And then I changed this to say, what is your favorite color? Choose red or blue. You're totally going to get this in a second. The next line is in magenta, and that says, what is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? It might be 3. And then after that, we go into an if. So this changes the text up here that I typed, number 3. It changes that text to be an integer. So if that integer is not shown as text, or if it's not shown as a number, then it tells you your text, whatever it says, is not a number. So if I typed in up here, unladen swallow, and then I just put in like birds, then it would tell me your text birds is not a number.
And this was that thing that we were talking about last week, where you need to sanitize your inputs, because there's always going to be someone who tries to put in something that they shouldn't put in.
Yeah.
And if it asks you a number, they're going to put blue and that would actually say, no, you got to give me a number.
Blue is not actually a number.
Yeah.
So if it does actually work, it'll go ahead and step down to the next part, which is where it says, okay, that was actually a number. Do you want to print this on separate lines? Say yes or no. Now, if it says yes, then it's supposed to print on separate lines. Else, it will print on different lines, or the same line. After that, we have down here, which is our if-else. So this one says if on separate lines, console write line text. Basically what that means is it's going to enter every single time. Else, it will just write the same text on the same line. That is what this bit means right here.
Right, and again, that's the key concept that we had from last time, which is an if-else allows you to have sort of either do this or do that, but not both.
Exactly.
Which is important in programming because otherwise programs become useless. You just write a series of instructions. Yeah, they'll just break, right.
No.
You want a way to choose which pieces of code are going to execute, and an if-else statement is a way to do that.
And also, I should mention up here, see this bit? That's my operator.
Yay,
So operators can be anything from less than, greater than, they can be equals, they can be greater.
Less than, greater, equal, yeah, greater than, equal to, less than, equal to,
yes.
not equal to, equal. Yeah, it's basically, it's what we learned in high school math,
It's
right?
comparing one counter or one kind of, what's it called?
Right, so you're comparing operands with the operator.
That's what it is. It compares one operand to another one, and then it tries to tell you whether it's
true or false.
True or false,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's what I did right there. If we step down after this if-else, then we get the bottom part, which is the count was, and then it counts up how many times it actually printed out on your screen. After that, I just left this the same. Console color is red, and then it says type enter to exit. After that, it resets the color and read key.
Yeah.
Bam, we're
now, something else I really love about that you did in this program is we'd never talked about some of the other things you can do with console. We've only talked about console read and console write, console write line. But as you played around with this, you found that in the IDE, in the integrated developer environment, if you type console, it will actually give you a drop-down menu
it's so cool.
of all the other things you can choose. And you
can just click on one, that way you don't type it differently, you don't type it wrong.
And you found the one for color.
Color, yeah. So Lou has showed us color at the end of his, but I started playing around with different colors. For example, it does not recognize orange, but it does recognize red. It doesn't recognize purple, but it does recognize magenta. So there's a couple of strange things going on in there, but I say just play around with it and then break it.
Break it and then fix it.
So I clicked on start, and it's going to show you, so mine is very colorful.
Color.
Choose red or blue. Blue. And then on here, what is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? I'm going to say it's 7, because it's totally 7.
You really got into the colors.
Print on separate lines. And I spelled separate wrong, of course. So I'm going to say yes, and it prints on separate lines. Blue, 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 blue. The count was 8. Type enter to exit. So hit enter, and it exits.
Now, I know that for some of the folks at home, this is going to look like, oh, it's like those early websites that put every blinky tag. But no. Again, you're doing exactly what you should be doing, which is as you're learning a language, mess with it.
Yeah,
right?
I'm starting to mess with that. I'm starting to mess with the IDE, Visual Studio for Windows Desktop, and that's pretty interesting. It definitely helps to go into all the different tools and all the different menus and figure out what all of them do. Because if you don't want something to be set the way that you've broken it, then just don't hit save.
Yeah, don't hit save. Exactly.
Just play around with the tool and you'll be able to figure it out.
Again, folks, this is one of the things that we've been trying to stress since episode 1, and that is we're not trying to give you a high school or college class in programming. We can't do that in 30 minutes a week. What we do want to do is show some of the more interesting concepts, have you go out and as Shannon does so expertly each week, break it. Mess around with the code, jump into the IDE and figure out what else it lets you do. Add some color, play with while loops, try to make it crash. That's really what we do in the world of the Code Monkey.
Now, speaking of interesting things that our friends have done out there, we got some really cool examples this week. Would you like to see them?
Yes, I would. We're all about the homework, and I got to tell you, man, our Coding 101 Code Monkeys have really stepped up.
Yes, they have. So I'm going to read the email from this one first off. So this one came from Matt and Joshua. So they said that their 8-year-old son Joshua is really enjoying Coding 101. He wanted to try a tic-tac-toe game. So he and his father Matt have spent the past couple of days coding and debugging a simple console-based tic-tac-toe game in C#. He also wanted to send you the code to look at and try. So we are going to include that in all of our notes. And it's a very simple 2-player tic-tac-toe game. It's just strictly in a console. So let's go ahead and check it out.
Hey, Shannon.
Yeah.
Shall we play a game?
Let's play a game.
Let's do it.
Okay. So I go into my console application. I named this one tic-tac-toe, so it was easy to find. Click on that. And then I choose tic-tac-toe.cs. That's the file inside my program.
Oh, and by the way, folks, yeah, if you're going to do homework for us, send us your code so we could actually show it off.
Yeah, definitely. So I definitely did check this too, because it was in an email, and I was like, I don't know what I'm running on my computer. So I went ahead and looked through the code. It's totally legit. It's totally fine. So if you go up to Start, up here. All right, so please enter player 1's name. And I will enter Snibs. Player 2, Padre.
Oh, no.
Okay, so row is
ASCII
to the
art.
side, columns are up and down. So row, I'm going to choose 1. Column, I'm also going to choose 1, so it should appear in the middle. Yep.
2-2.
2-2. Okay, 2, 2. All right, so you have 0 down here. I'm going to choose, oh man, you're making this hard on me. Let's do 1, 2. Okay, your turn.
0-2.
0, 2. All right. And I'm going to choose 1, 0. I win.
Woot.
Yay!
So, I mean,
Isn't that cute?
the code, I mean, it looks simple, but the coding that went into this game is actually really
It's
good.
long.
It's long, and it requires checking of states, because you have to know whether or not that person actually won. That's actually
Yes.
difficult at the end. This is the sort of stuff that will eventually lead into an app. This is a really good understanding of combining a bunch of different elements into a working piece of code. I love
Yes.
it. Very
it's
well done.
Great. We also got a couple of pretty interesting coding examples over at our G+. It's gplus.to/twitcoding101. It's working again.
I really like this one.
So both of these are from Square Iguana. The first one is a episode 1 example. So this one basically types in his name, and then it validates credentials for the user. So it looks like a video game. Isn't that interesting?
No way.
Yeah.
Square Iguana, good job.
And then
Boom.
it gives you some text. Bam.
Wham.
And then it'll refresh itself. He also gave us the code for this example, and he uses a whole bunch of console colors on here. So he used, let's see, dark cyan. Ooh, I want to try that one. That's pretty. A whole bunch of different console colors. He also used a whole bunch of right lines on here, or rights, right there.
And see, here's the thing. There's
this is-
nothing here that we haven't at least touched a little bit about. This is this is using the console command. This is using a bunch of loops. So if you know those console commands and loops, and if you're actually starting to break down the real world into discernible pieces, like we've been asking people to do,
Exactly.
you could turn this program into something wonderful.
Oh yeah, well, he did turn it into something wonderful.
Thank you very much, Iguana. Square Iguana, we love
Nice
you.
throw.
Yeah.
So this was his second example. This is for episode 2 with while loops. He said the first thing when talking about while loops is animations in games that he thinks of. And for games, we need at least some kind of GIFs. So animation is a cool demonstration for this example.
So
Isn't
wow.
that cute?
So wow.
It's awesome.
Very Code Monkey.
I love that. And it's a regular operator, just like we've seen. It's so cool.
Yeah. Again, Square Iguana, you hit it out of the park. This is fantastic. I now throw down the gauntlet, I think, to everyone else, right?
I think so.
I think you got to show Square Iguana he's
I
not
don't
all
know if I can beat
that.
that. I'm still pretty beginner.
Well, I mean,
Based on that.
I'm not allowed to. But I will say, I was impressed. I mean, given that we haven't gone into some of the more advanced concepts, they did a really good job with what they had.
Absolutely. And speaking of which, we have a sponsor that can help
we
them
do.
get learned up on even more C# and
You see,
C++.
Yeah, we're all about giving people the knowledge, but again, we only have 30 minutes a week, right?
course, yeah.
And so we thought we should have a sponsor on the show. We should have someone who could give our code monkeys everything else that they need. Fill in all those blanks. Give us the real classroom-style education so that they could learn to code.
Who is it?
That's lynda.com.
Yes.
That's right. Lynda.com is an online learning company that can help anyone learn creative software and business skills to achieve both personal and professional goals. With the lynda.com subscription, members receive unlimited access to a vast library of current and engaging video tutorials across a wide variety of subjects. Everything from creative and software skills to business negotiation and programming. At lynda.com, you'll learn how to code, create, and build applications from the foundations of object-oriented programming in C and C++. the desktop and mobile apps for today's popular operating systems. You'll explore the fundamentals of programming, building web applications with .NET, PHP, and MySQL, managing data with SQL databases, connecting to cloud services, and much, much more. Now, I've been programming for a long time, but what I love about lynda.com, especially when I'm brushing up on my C and my C++ skills, is that they let me fill in all those little gaps, all those, and you know this, Shannon, you learned something a while back, but then you kind of need a refresher course. Well, Lynda's all about that. Yeah, I need review. And Lynda helps you review. Now, you can improve your skills, learn new software, and keep up with technology with lynda.com. They have over 2,000 courses with more added daily. Popular courses include Foundations of Programming, HTML, PHP with MySQL, Objective-C, Java, JavaScript, and WordPress. Instructors are working professionals at the top of their fields and expert teachers. Now, Snubs, let me ask you this. How many times have you gone into a YouTube video and you've just seen it's like horrible? The lighting is bad, the audio is horrible. It's like someone talking to their cell phone and it's all jittery.
Yeah, that happens on occasion.
Yeah, do you want to watch it all the way through?
No, I get bored about like a minute in.
Exactly, so. which is sad because there's a lot of really smart people out there, but if they're not doing all the extras, all the lighting and the camera work that they need to do, the production values, well, you're just not going to watch it all the way through.
That's true.
Well, you don't got to worry about that with lynda.com because they do all their work in a studio, a state-of-the-art studio with professionals who are at the top of their fields, expert teachers who have actually worked in the field, so they're not just giving you the theoretical, they know how it works in real life. They have curated course content. Each lynda.com course is carefully structured so that users can learn from start to finish, or, as I do, jump to a specific chapter to answer a specific question. They have easy-to-follow videos that can help you find the answers you need, and, this is the part I love, searchable transcripts that let you search within a video to save you time and find exactly what you're looking for. No more scrubbing through a video, you just jump to the part that's going to answer your question. Lynda has courses for all experience levels, beginner, intermediate, and advanced, covering a wide range of technical skills, creative techniques, business strategies, and so much more. You can watch from your computer, tablet, or mobile device. You can switch and pick up on a chapter where you left off. In other words, learn at your own pace, on your own schedule, on your own device, at your own time. Now, here's what we want you to do. If you're serious about becoming a code monkey, then try lynda.com. It's only $25 a month for access to Lynda's entire course library, or for $37.50 a month, you can subscribe to the premium plan, which includes the exercise files that let you follow along with the instructor's projects using the exact same assets. And you can try lynda.com right now with a free 7-day trial. Visit lynda.com/C101 to access the entire library. That's over 2,000 courses free for 7 days. That's lynda.com/C101. And we thank Lynda for their support of Coding 101.
Functions!
Functions!
Yay!
Okay, so we've been holding back on this for a while because we didn't want to freak people out, right? We wanted to give them some of the basics. But functions are a big part of programming. Now, imagine this. Imagine you're writing a program that's not one page, not 100 lines, not 200 lines, not 1,000 lines, but 1,000,000 lines long.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's kind of a pain in the butt. Now,
that's scary.
Yeah. Dang, nature, you scary. No, but seriously, the way that we've been working so far is we've been reading left to right, top to bottom.
Yes, we have. Just like reading.
Just like reading. Now, we've got loops, which let us do a piece of code over and over again. But imagine if you had a piece of code, a program that was so complicated that it had those 1,000,000 lines, you didn't want to have to map out each and every single possibility, each and every single time it might run, correct?
Right now, as far as I know, once I get to the end of the code, I could just copy and paste the same thing over again if I wanted to rewrite.
Yeah, that's a pain, right?
It would be a pain. Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Let me give you an example. Let's say that there's a function that turns off the lights in your room. Okay, remember, because we always want to break down everything in the real world into usable pieces. Well, if I could use this function at any time in my program, I would have to, every once in a while, put in an if-then statement saying, if they want to turn off the lights now, do this, else just continue.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't do that enough times, right? Because then it means that my user would always have to get to one of those breakpoints before he could turn the lights off.
Right.
Well, why would you do that if you could just write one function, one little piece of code that turns off the lights, and then just call it.
I
Write
see.
it once, call it many times.
So is this kind of like whenever Lou sanitizes his information, it always goes down and it tries that little function to...
Right, yeah. So Lou has a function that sanitizes. And the reason why he does that is because he's going to sanitize multiple inputs. He doesn't want to have to rewrite the entire set of code that sanitizes the inputs. Instead, he's going to write a generic sanitizing function that says, take in this input, make sure that it's what I'm expecting, and then give it back to me.
So it kind of sits outside and just waits for you to call it.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other cool thing about a function is you can write a bunch of modules that are self-contained.
Yeah.
That you can then copy and paste into another project.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, this is how we, if you've just got code in a really complicated project, you would never just copy and paste it over because you don't know what dependencies there are there, right? Maybe it's calling in a variable that was initialized on line 7, and maybe it needs a feature, a piece of code that's down on line 4000.
Right.
So you would never just copy it over. But if it's a function, it's already by definition self-contained.
Oh, I think I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's what you want.
I want to see an example, though.
I think that's a good idea. So what we've got here in this really messy, I pre-wrote this because people were complaining, hey, Padre, your handwriting is horrible and the chalkboard makes... Yeah, so ignore this for a while. So this doesn't exist. We're just giving you the basic structure of a function. Whenever I'm using a function in C#, I need to use this format.
Okay.
Visibility, return type, name, and parameter.
Say what?
Yeah, exactly. What you talking about?
What you talking about, Padre?
Okay, so when we talk about visibility, there are different types of functions. I can have a public function, I can have a private function. There's a couple of other weird types I could use. But that basically says what pieces of code can see this and what kind of data is going to be seen from it.
Okay.
Right, so most of the time when I'm writing, I'm writing private functions. Because I don't want other parts. I only want to call it specifically when I want to call it.
Okay.
But you can flip back and forth. For our demonstration, for our Code Warrior, I believe we're using all private functions. The return type. Okay. If I'm writing a function that just does something. So let's say I write a function that writes a bunch of text, and that's all it does. I don't have a return type. It's not returning any data to me.
Oh.
It's just doing something on the screen and then ending.
Right.
Okay. So if I'm not doing anything, I put void.
Oh.
In other words, there's nothing that's coming back.
That makes sense.
I'm going to call the function and nothing comes back.
Okay.
Name is just the name of the function. You need something to call the function.
And you can call that whatever you want.
So you could call, it's just like naming a variable. So it's the same limitations on what you can call it. But you need a name for a specific function, and it has to be different than all other functions.
Oh,
because anytime you type in that name, you're telling the compiler, go back to that the function I wrote.
Right, okay.
And then finally, in parentheses, parameter. These are the parameters, the data that gets passed into the function. So for example, let's say I want to write a function that's just going to loop over and over and write stuff on the screen.
Right.
This is where I would declare that there's going to be a string coming into the function and use that string to execute the code.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Now that's the theoretical model. Here's what it actually looks like. Here's an example of a function that I just drew up in like 2-3 minutes.
So public is your visibility.
Correct.
So it's public and you can see it anywhere.
Correct.
Basically.
Yeah.
Integer is the return type. Integer answer.
Right. So actually, yeah. So it's going to return an integer.
Okay.
So in other words, it's saying
Return
it's
type is
going to give you a whole number.
Okay.
Okay.
Answer is the name.
Mm-hmm.
And then int A, int B is the parameter.
Right, so it's telling me that I've got a public function that's going to return an integer that's going to be called, that's called answer, that's going to be using two parameters, integer A and integer B.
Oh, so you're doing a math equation there.
I'm basically doing a math equation.
Okay,
now
got it.
inside here, inside the brackets, this is the code of the function. Integer C, so it's initializing a new integer called C, is equal to A plus B. So whatever integers I brought into my function, it's now adding them together, and then it's returning it as C, which is an integer, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that's how I declare a function. That's how I define it.
Okay.
When I'm calling it, all I have to do is write this. Let's see if I have this again, because I'm lame on the chalkboard. Now I know it's answer, so I just say answer.
C.
And I'm going to give it X and Y. So now all I've done is I've said, please run the function called answer and give it the parameters that I have previously from some other function or some other piece of code called X and Y. That will jump into the function. X becomes A, B becomes Y, or you know what I'm saying, and then it's combined and returned, and answer becomes the answer of these combined.
Oh, interesting.
Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah,
We're going to go
kind
more
of.
in depth when we get to the Code Warrior, but this is fundamental. You need to know functions if you're going to do object-oriented programming because, again, we want the ability to mimic the real world. And in the real world, as we've been doing with if-then if-else statements, you want to break it down into teeny tiny pieces. Well, what better way than to make some functions?
Yay, functions.
Yatta!
Cool. Well, I can't wait to see what Lou says about this.
Yeah, so we're going to have to bring the Code Warrior in here because, you know, he's got the real stuff, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
and it's always nice to see what he is writing as well because it gives you a really generic idea of how to make your own functions.
Right, right. But before we do that, Snubs, you want to take some time to pay some bills?
I think that's, I hate paying bills. Can we make this easy?
Okay, how about this? You want to take some time to show the good folks at home how they should be storing their code, how they should be managing their projects? Cool. Let's do that. Now, I'm glad to welcome into the show another one of these sponsors who is just it's kind of a natural fit for Coding 101, and that's Atlassian. You see, Jira, which is an Atlassian product, is one of the world's most powerful and customizable issue and project management systems. If you want to know what that means, it just means that you have a single pane of glass that runs your projects, runs your enterprise, runs the interworkings between your colleagues, and even controls your code. It easily captures and organizes your workflow so that you can prioritize and take action on what's important, while staying up to date with the activity going on around you. Jira lets you easily capture, organize, and prioritize your team's issues, tasks, features, and bugs. It gives your team a simple, intuitive interface for collaborating with each other in real time, and seamlessly integrates your planning documents, your backlog, your issues, and your code repository all on one platform. You can set up any business process you can imagine so that your team works the way that they want. This is not one of those tools that's going to demand that you change your workflow to fit the suite. No, they want the suite to fit the way that you work. You can define your own issue types to track the information that matters most to your team and stay in the loop with notifications via email, chat, @mentions, or RSS, and monitor streams of activity or self-updating reports and dashboards so that you're always in the know about the data that actually matters to you. Jira lets you expand infinitely in any direction with thousands of Jira add-ons, including test management, time tracking, project management, and hundreds of other uses. Now, if your issues involve code, I mean, if you're Code Monkey, of course it does, Jira ties everything together from an initial planning doc, the files and chain sets in your code repository, all the way through to deployment. Jira's integration with Git allows teams to follow their code from that development all the way through delivery in one system, and you can even build Jira yourself with the power of Atlassian's REST APIs. Jira is flexible and simple enough for a 5-person startup, but powerful and reliable enough for a 100,000-person enterprise. They're used by over 25,000 companies, including 70% of the Fortune 100 and NASA. Jira sits at the heart of Atlassian's offerings for managing your entire application development process from concept to launch, and they'll sit by you, stand with you as your project progresses. So here's what we want you to do. We want you to go to Atlassian.com/C101 for more information on Jira to see if it's right for you. Monthly plans start at $10 a month for up to 10 users, and you can try it free for 30 days. Remember, Atlassian.com/C101. That's Atlassian.com/C101, and select Try It for Free. And we thank Atlassian for their support of Coding 101.
Thank you.
Hey, Stubbs.
Yes.
Isn't this normally the time when we add someone to the show?
Did you hear a Lou?
A Lou?
Is there a Lou out there?
Is that our Code Warrior? That is our Code Warrior!
Hey guys, how's it going?
Welcome to the show.
Lou, in case you're just joining us, Lou is a wonderful employee of Microsoft who has been on many a Twitch show. He's been on This Week in Enterprise Tech. He's been on TN2. He's been on Coding 101, and he is a serious code monkey. Lou, how you doing?
Doing fantastic. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. And today you are our Code Warrior. I'm so excited.
All right.
Now, Lou, we just did a quick thing on functions. Of course, we didn't go into everything. We just gave them enough to get running. But you did something wonderful. You took some of the code that we had already been running in our previous 4 episodes, and you put them into functions.
That's right.
Oh,
That's right.
cool.
First of all, I want to say the examples that they were giving us to the show, those were awesome. Fantastic.
didn't you
those
love
are really
those?
cool stuff. Yeah.
Amazing.
They make mine look like junk.
Yeah, me too.
I like colors.
But anyway, so yeah, that's exactly right. So what I wanted to show today is the ability to kind of break up what we've already done and give. So I got actually a question from multiple people actually, but one specifically, Joshua Walker. He asked if I could, on Twitter, if I could build some kind of like a menu system to allow a user to select some things and select some functions, and then the program would go and do that. And so what I did is I integrated the previous examples that we had, where we had like, I think, repeat a word and convert from a number to a binary, that kind of thing. And I wanted it make so the user can select those different capabilities of the program, and then it would go and run them using our function examples. And so that's kind of what I wanted to show today, is how you can do that. And it's using all the different things that we've used so far. So around console and while loops and if statements and stuff like that.
Now, Lou, before you get into the crazy stuff, let me ask you really quick, because, I mean, there's going to be people, I know this always happens, there's going to be people who say, well, I don't really need to use a function, right? I mean, all those functions seem so simple, I just put them in the code.
Sure.
What would be something that you would give to the code monkey who's just starting off, who says, functions are too hard, I don't really need them, I'm just going to code it as I go?
Sure. So, I mean, a lot of programs, I mean, you could pretty much do some simple tasks in just, a bunch of lines and not have to break it up into functions. Completely understandable. But just like you said before, as programs get larger and bigger and they do lots and lots of things, it actually takes a toll on kind of getting confusing on the page. It doesn't really make sense to keep everything in one spot. And so breaking it up in little small, what they call functions or functional pieces that allow you to make it more, you give them names, and then you tell, we can pass them and what they will return. It makes it more sense and kind of organizes things a little bit. And when it's not only you necessarily looking at that code, it makes more sense to the person that might take it on later. So, and even you later, like sometimes I go back to my code that has like hundreds of thousands of lines, and I say, wonder what this one thing does. And luckily the function has a good name and it maybe has some comments and it's broken out. And so that functionality allows me to kind of determine what it's actually doing.
My old college professor used to tell me, yeah, functions, especially when you're starting off, it's an unnecessary pain until you come back to a project after a month away, or 2 months away, 3 months away, and you realize, I have no idea what my code does. Whereas if you've commented it properly and if you have properly named functions, you pretty much know exactly what every section of code does.
That's right, yep, exactly.
All right, show us what you got.
Sure. So again, back to just the standard console. What I wanted to do first is there's a way to actually grab, so make it a little bit more personal. There's a way to actually grab the username of the current user in the system. So I'm just going to grab, this is an environment variable called username, and I'm just going to store it in a username variable. And this allows me to kind of pass that around to have welcome messages and stuff like that. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function that basically says hello and prints out a menu. And so if I go down here, I have a quick little function that calls print menu. And just like you said, it's a void. And that void means it doesn't actually return anything. I'm not a big fan of the void keyword, but it's from the old C++ and C days. Right. And so it still exists in some of the newer languages, but void means it doesn't really return anything. But we have a print menu, so it's basically telling everybody, hey, this is just going to print the menu. And then I'm going to take a name. So this way I can actually print the user's name in the menu somewhere. In this case, I'm saying, I'm setting the title of the console window to Coding 101. This is just the title of that window. And then I'm saying, hey, welcome to Coding 101. And here I'm actually putting the username over here, or the name that got entered in there. So again, a function that I'm taking the parameter and using it in my little function. Again, just a console write line like we've used before. And then the rest of it's just a console write line to basically say, hey, selection A would repeat a word, selection B will convert numbers to binary, and selection C will just say hello.
So and right now, we're not actually getting any kind of string user input. We're just getting a whole bunch of stuff written on the board.
That's it. And so like if I wanted to actually call that and just do that in my program, I would, just do like Padre said. I'm gonna make sure it pauses here, but I'm gonna go and call the print menu function. It gives me a little telesense, even though I've typed the function, it's gonna still give me this little drop-down menu of what I typed, and then I'm gonna pass in the username that I grabbed from the system. So I run this. I'll get welcome Almaresca to Coding 101, and then I can actually make a menu selection. And here in this case, there's
that's
nothing
cool.
there. Yeah.
Now I know there's people in the chat room who are saying, wait a minute, this seems really complicated for something that we did in week 1.
Yeah.
You're just printing a menu. It's just but again, look, what you're doing is you're creating a module so that you never have to write that code again.
That's right.
You can just call it that one little line that he gave you, print menu. You run that line, and that entire section of code will run. It's a really, really good way to make sure that you're code efficient. And Lou will tell you, one of the problems with bloat is when people just keep copying and pasting rather than making proper functions.
Like me right now.
Oh, actually, another question we got, really good question from the chat room. M5 wanted to know, well, can I like save these functions in another file? And yes, and actually that's something that, again, we purposely didn't talk about. But there are include statements in your projects. Those includes actually refer.
That's what that's for.
Yeah, they refer to files that have functions, and you're actually calling those functions even though they're not on your project screen.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question for you, Lou. On the environment that you added in there, can that be anything other than username?
So there are other things that environment does. Environment's kind of like a generic object that's in C# that gives you things like machine name and username, domain name. So like a lot of people who do business development or business apps that are doing things like doing specific little tasks on a machine, like hands-off type tasks, they use the environment variable to do things. It'll tell you the version of the program, if the product is, if the operating system is 64-bit, what the version of the OS is. So it gives you some information about the machine and the environment. In this case, I'm just using it to get the username, but I could have put something like, this too, and then it would have just worked just as well.
Yeah, but I mean, what I've used the environment variable for is you can actually call for the network name of the machine, so that if you're writing say a network-aware application, you could have the program know or report back to a central database, this input comes from this machine, this input comes from that machine.
Got it.
And
that's cool.
Yeah, it's nice because you don't have to write that. That would actually be a pain in the butt to write. This is built into the environment.
That's great. Okay, moving on.
And I guess I could potentially ask the user, hey, what's your name? And then I could have also done that too. I just don't want to make it too complex in the beginning. But this at least gives us some information to work with. So then once I have my menu, now I have to kind of figure out how I'm going to allow the user to kind of basically select one of these items, right? So now that it's printed out, I need to give them the option to select it. And so in here, I'm going to put a nice if-then statement, basically.
Whoa.
Oops. So the if-then statement will allow me to basically tell the user to go ahead and so I'm going to copy and paste that in there. And I'm going to put a variable in here called selection. So whatever they select, right now I'm going to set it to, I don't know, 0. So there's a variable called selection. And these are all things that are not there yet. So I'm going to get rid of those for now.
Oh, and by the way, so anyone watching along with the stream, the reason why he's putting if selection is equal to 65, if it's equal to 66, those are actually the values that get returned on a key press.
That's right, exactly. So like I wanted to make this a little simpler than before because we had that fancy function with the try parse.
Right.
And a lot of people said, oh, I don't really understand what that does. And so I wanted to make this a little simpler. So if you notice here, we're basically going to the menu, printing the menu, which will show A, B, and C. And then the user has the option to select something. And so here I use another function in console called read key. Right. And that means that the next key that you press, I'm going to read it. I'm going to determine what that is.
And that's different than what we've done before, because previously they had to like type Y and hit enter.
Yes.
This way, it's just waiting. The very first time you press a key, it's going to give that a value, be it 65, 6, 7, 8, etc.
That's
exactly
cool. Okay.
It makes it a little easier because then it's really easy for me to convert it to a number right away because I could just take that. It's just a character then rather than a whole string of characters. And so I convert it right to a letter, right to a number here, and I call it my selection. I store it in my selection variable I have here. And then from then on, I add a little space in between. And then in here on, I actually go through and I say, okay, if it's A, it's probably going to be 65. It's character 65, and it's ASCII code 65. And then these all characters are defined on the web. If you just go look for character codes, it'll tell you which each error character is. Or you can do trial and error. Usually I do trial and error sometimes where I just print out what the code is. And so this will tell me that this is selection A. So if they selected selection A, I'll do something. And then all the way down here, I have different selections. So A, B, and C. And then, of course, I also have the quit command. So like if they typed Q, or if they just hit enter, which is 13, or if they hit the escape key. So this will allow me to basically do any of those. And if you notice, it's actually in a loop. So the loop has just a while loop, but I put true in here. And this is actually considered what we call an infinite loop, which means it never, ever ends. And the way I actually end it is if the user types Q, or if they type or hit the escape key or hit enter, I force a break in the loop. I say break, stop. And so what that allows me to do then is stop this infinite loop, and it starts over. So the reason why I put the loop there is the menu will keep coming up over and over again after each function, after each thing that happens.
Yeah, so for the more experienced programmers, they're all calling this a main loop. That's what we normally call it. This is essentially where the program's going to execute, and then it's just going to call the functions as users hit a key.
Okay,
That's
got
right.
it.
Yep. So if I run this right now, again, it's not going to really do much other than if I just keep hitting things like keys, it's going to keep repeating the menu over and over again. But if I hit Q, it closes the app.
Okay.
Yep. So that's easy as that. So now what I want to do, so now I have a little function that prints the menu. And now let's add in there, like for instance, let's add in there the repeat word one, where we basically ask the user for a word and they enter it, and then we repeat it a certain amount of times. So I simplified this a little bit more. And what this does again is it's the exact same function. Asks what do you want to repeat. They enter what they want to repeat. We ask them how many times. Again, we have the try parse here so I can convert it to a number, because they can enter in a whole bunch of long numbers like thousands, 100,000s, that kind of thing.
Right.
So I still want to use try parse here. But I changed the if statement. So this way, only if it is a number. So if it's true, if it's actually a number, this comes back as it says, yep, it's a number. Then I go and actually repeat it. And so then I can call this. So if I pop back up here, repeat a number, I can basically uncomment this and say, hey, now if they choose A, it's going to repeat it, or going to run that function. So if I run this guy again, I'm going to choose A. So there you go. So this is what word do you want to repeat, coding, how many times, 10, and there you go. And then it goes right back to the menu.
Oh, that's awesome. So it continually goes back to that while loop at the
Until
top.
you break out.
Yep.
Until you break out.
That's great.
And see, and then he can do that for the rest of those statements. If
That's right.
selection, else if selection, else if selection. Each time you have one of those, he's got that function right next to it. So if you press a key, it will return a value. It will match those up against these values. If it matches that value, that particular function will run.
Right. If they
That's
type
cool.
something that's not in this loop and not in this list, then it basically ignores it. If you look at it, it says only if it's that, if it's this, if it's that, if it's quit. Otherwise, loop again. And it just keeps showing the menu again, basically saying, we don't know what you pressed, so I'm just going to show you the menu just so you can try again.
Right. And you can do that because it's in a loop. You don't have
Right.
to, you just leave out the last else. There is no else. It's only if this, 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 or this. If none of those, just keep going back into the loop until you do get something that matches up.
Okay.
And there's some things to note here too, real quick. I want to make sure we show. This is an operator. It's called the OR operator. It's basically saying, you know, this or this or this. I can, you know, and that means it's just allowing me to kind of like concatenate multiple different selections in here into one else if statement. And so you can kind of play with that. You can get rid of these, and I could have put a whole bunch of other else ifs in here if I really wanted to, and just put breaks in all of them, but I didn't want to repeat myself over and over again. So I just kind of concatenate them together using that operator.
Well, that's cool.
Hey, Lou, M5 has a good question in the chat room. He goes, oh, so could you overflow that?
You could. You could. Over time, well, I guess you can't, because basically the stack, what will end up happening is the stack, every time you call a function, they basically put another function on the stack. And so, but since it's returning, it's actually taking a step back.
Right.
And so the stack is very, very small. And so it should never, ever overflow. The only time you could probably overflow is if I enter a number that's over an int, that's really over the 32-bit size of an int. And in this case, it's in this nifty, fancy little try parse method that will tell me that it's too large, and then I'll get a false, and
So
it'll
you
just
need
return.
4 billion something something million blah 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 blah.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
But other than that, in this case, there's no really overflow capability here. Even if it is an infinite loop, I'm just kind of returning over and over again to the same spot.
Right. Right.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay. So you want to run through the rest of your program really quick?
Yeah, sure. So again, we have a convert to binary. Again, I'm just going to copy it from our previous example. In fact, I didn't even change the code in this case. I just wrapped it with a function. And so if I go down here really quick, I'll just paste it in here so you guys can see. And again, it's the convert to binary function. It's the exact same code that we have in the example. And again, all I'm going to do now is go up here and uncomment it. And now if they choose option B, it will call that. So I'll run it again. And there you go. So if I hit B, it says enter whole number. and there's the binary version of it right there. So, and then again, last thing is the say hello. And this one I wanted to actually do it, but probably don't have enough time. But what I wanted to do is have this actually create a loop and call the function a whole bunch of times, so you can see the example of why you don't want to have to repeat your code over and over again. But in this case, it's just going to say hello to the username, and you can make it do whatever you want, obviously. And like Snubs did, she changed the color and stuff, so that was kind of cool. But in this case, it'll say hello, and if I just hit go, it says, hi, Almaresca in cyan.
Oh, cool.
So you can do whatever you want. And then again, convert number. So basically, I can do whatever the application allows me to do in these selections.
Now, Lou, this is a lot, and I know people are going to freak out when they get to your code because it's already up on GitHub. But we want people to break down each of these pieces into something that they've already covered, right? I mean, you took the programs that we talked about in the first 4 episodes and you put them into functions. So there's actually not a whole lot of super new concepts in this program, right?
Yep. I mean, if you show my screen one more time, and the nice thing about Visual Studio allows you to collapse things, and I collapsed everything. If you think about it, it really, as a collapsed way of looking at it, there's really not much here.
Yep.
Right? It's just say hello, convert, repeat, and print, and that's it. And then if you look at the menu,
you've got your main loop, and you've got a couple of supporting functions, and that's it.
That's right, exactly. Yep. So it might be a little daunting at first because there is a lot of stuff. Because as a program gets larger, more and more lines are going to get in there, and it's going to get hard to follow. And that's why you name things correctly. And sometimes you move, like some other people said, move them to different files. And it gets a little less daunting than that case.
I'm starting to feel like I'm playing Legends of the Red Dragon again on BBS because you have all these options. Like, do you want to fight the dragon? Do you want to go sleep at the hotel?
Do you want to run?
Exactly.
Do you want to run?
I have been eaten by a Gru.
There's a whole movement now for those types of games again, actually.
No, I love it. I did kill the Red Dragon, by the way.
I did not. Lou, you are truly a code warrior. Now, before you send our code monkeys off into the void, you've got a little bit of homework, right? You've got a challenge. You'd like to see them do something with this code.
Yeah, so what I want to do is actually, obviously, add some more functions in here. Maybe make the menu a little bit more versatile. Like Snub said, maybe make a little game out of it. Like some of the examples always came in, allow the user to choose some options and go and do things and make decisions. Decision making is kind of a cool thing using if statements and loops. And so try that out and see what you can do. And again, maybe use that loop to see how a function actually can be called over and over again and repeat itself, so you can kind of not have to repeat your code over and over again.
Absolutely. Lou Maresca from Microsoft, thank you so very, very much. We're going to have you on next week, and you want to give us a little taste? I mean, of course, we got to flesh out some of the material we had today, but where do you think we should take our code monkeys next?
Ooh.
Well, I mean, we could basically now we talked about functions, how to break it out. Maybe we could talk about properties and fields and other things that allow you to kind of break out things that describe things. So like, obviously I have properties as a human, so we can basically describe different pieces of the function using properties, stuff like that.
Ooh, that sounds cool.
And if you want to tell the folks at home where they could find you, I know that you've got a Twitter address. I know that you're here on the Twit TV network, so if they watch long enough, they'll see you. But let's say they want to know what goes on in the day of a code warrior. Where do they find you?
Sure. You can actually email me, loumm@outlook.com. I'm throwing it out there, and I'm so sure that the current filters that I have work really well. I'm going to get your email, so we'll see what happens. But loumm at Twitter too as well.
Lou, thank you. Thank you so very much. Now, don't forget that if this kind of blew you away, your best bet is to drop by our show page, because you're going to find explanations from Snub Compiled. You're going to see the notes from the Ivory Tower, and you're going to get the link to the GitHub. Now, folks, remember, the GitHub is the code you should be executing. That's where you're going to find the actual code that we used on the show each and every single week.
Yes.
Also, if you're there, subscribe. Get it automatically on your iPhone, your iPad, your Android device, your laptop, your desktop, whatever. That's where you're going to find some of the best show notes in the business.
And hey, did you know that we are on iTunes?
Yes, we are.
We're still on one of the top listed ones under educational.
But we're not going to stay there long if people don't tell their friends about Coding 101.
So if you want to, if you use iTunes, definitely go and subscribe there, and maybe write us a review too. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, and also, did you know that we're not just at our RSS feed and iTunes, you can also find us on YouTube.
Ah, that's true.
You go to youtube.com/twitcoding101. You can watch our episodes and you can catch updates about our upcoming Google Hangouts. We are approaching the end of our first module, which means we're going to have a big hangout as we approach our wildcard episodes.
I'm so excited. Can I have a beer while we do that?
Absolutely.
Yes, awesome.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
cool. And we're also on Google Plus again. That's over at gplus.to/twitcoding101. And we have plenty of awesome feedback going on in there. And I love the code that you guys are sharing. So thank you so much for
Make
sharing
sure to put your homework in there, because then look, then you get the accolades of your fellow code monkeys.
Yes.
Of course, if you're not into the G Plus groove, you can also find us on Twitter. That's probably actually the best way to find me.
Oh, yeah,
you can reach
definitely.
me at I'm at PadreSJ, so Twitter at PadreSJ,
And I'm at Snubs. Super easy.
yeah. Now, also, did you know, Snubs, that we're actually live right now?
Oh, we are?
Yeah, we're live.
crap.
Yeah, it's every Thursdays at 1:30, we go into some Code Monkey stuff here at live.twit.tv.
Hi, everybody. We also have a chat room. It's over at irc.twit.tv. You can also get to it through live.twit.tv too if you're watching.
Yeah, exactly. And you've heard us. We pull questions from the chat room as the show goes on.
Yes.
It's our way of making sure that we connect with the legion of the Code Monkey.
Woo!
Oh, well, I think that's about it.
Yeah, I think we're done.
Yeah, get us next time. I'm Father Robert Ballas here.
I'm shedding boys.
End of line.